This is All Clear, the Firefighter Health and Wellness Podcast, Episode 6, Check Yourself, with guest Matt Sellers. I'm Travis, co-host Eric, and we have a guest today. We have Matt Sellers from the Concord Fire Department and also board member of the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Alliance. And we are in a fire station, so you're probably going to hear stuff in the background. So to share that we don't pre-record. So Eric, how are you doing today? I didn't mean to ignore you.
We're doing good, man.
Excellent. How about you, Matt? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, it's good to have you here. Matt is a friend of the podcast and a friend of all of us personally. So what we were hoping to do today is, Matt, if you're willing, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your story, relationship you have to what we're doing with our peer support, the Cancer Alliance, and how we've worked with Eric and all that good stuff, and kind of where you're at right now.
Sure, I'd love to. So, anyhow, it's kind of a long story, and I'll try to narrow it down as much as I can, not to bore you too much. But in 2011, I was diagnosed with a very rare type of T Cell Lymphoma. And there's two types of lymphoma. There's B cell and T cell. And T cell is more obscure than B cell. B cell is the more common lymphoma. And of course, I was lucky enough to get the rare kind, and the kind that I had, the lymphoma that I had, counted for 1% of all the lymphomas in the world. So I should have bought a lottery ticket, I guess, at that point. But anyhow, it started in late February, early March of 2011, where I would notice I was getting lightheaded, jumping up in the middle of the night, going to calls and stuff like that. And just like any stubborn firefighter, just kind of put it off, kept, I brushed it off. I got up too fast, got lightheaded in the middle of the night.
Not going to the doctor till you're dying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. It's pretty common.
Which seems to be a common thing that we need to change. It's one of the things that we do need to change. But it continued on. I was not being able to eat, would eat just a little bit and would feel extremely full, and just hurt in my gut and my belly area. Was working out one morning, did like one jumping jack and noticed, the pain in my abdomen was excruciating, and I knew then that I'm going to have to go to see a doctor. So I made an appointment with my regular doctor. Went to go see them. They drew blood and called me and said, "Well, you're anemic," and which kind of threw me for a loop. I really didn't understand at that point kind of what that meant. He said, "We're going to set you up an appointment with a hematologist, oncologist, but we can't get you in for about 3 months."
Was this your regular doctor that you were seeing?
Correct. This is my regular family physician.
Okay, so we haven't even got the specialist or anything like that yet.
No,
okay.
Not at all. So he said they were going to set me up with an oncologist, a hematologist, and so it would take about 3 months to get me into one. And my wife, which is the bulldog of the family, said, "No, that's not going to work. We're going to find one on our own." So she did, and within a week, she had an appointment with my oncologist. That is still my oncologist today, or the firm in practice, I guess. And had an appointment and went and saw them. They drew blood, saw the same things. So we want to do a CT scan. Did a real quick, CT scan. Jump out, see the doctor. He comes in and it's like, "Listen," he says, "I think you have cancer."
Showstopper right there.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, that right to the gut. And he's like, "I don't know what kind. I have no clue. We're just going to have to start trying to do tests and try to figure it out." But in my opinion, that you have some type of cancer. And so I was like, okay, so that means it could not be. Yeah, also. But let's do what we got to do. So we started, this was in March, started doing, they took biopsies. They said I didn't have any mass. They said everything just looked cloudy in my abdomen. So they started taking tissue samples from my abdomen, several different places. Ended up taking a lymph node out of my groin, several different other biopsies, and can't find it, And by this time, I'm getting sicker and sicker and sicker. At this point, where I can't do anything, I'm out of work now, and this is coming up into April, right around Easter, and I was in the hospital, still trying to figure it out, but I was really sick.
So we're talking about a rapid decline in about, 2-3 months?
Correct.
Wow. So now, how long had you been in the fire service up to this time? And Eric, if you've got any questions, jump in too, because I'm probably missing the meat and potatoes of this. But how long had you been in the fire service when you noticed this significant decline?
In the fire service total, I started when I was as a junior firefighter when I was 16 years old, like in 1989.
So you knew what was normal for your body.
Yes. And I had been with the city fire department for about 5 years when this happened. And so anyhow, I get back to where I was, and the doctors are still trying to figure this out, and I'm laying in the hospital, and they have no clue. And the doctor comes in and is like, we don't know what to do. We're just going to send you down to Winston-Salem to Baptist Hospital. And so they put me in an ambulance, drove me from Huntersville to Wake Forest, Winston, to Baptist Hospital. They had, at this point, I had a team of oncologists, a team of hematologists, a team of just every kind of team you could think of, and they're all trying to figure out what's going on. They're doing more biopsies, more tests every day. I was down there for 2 weeks in the hospital, and I'm like coming up on Easter, and I was like, can I at least try? I'd love to go home for Easter. We're not doing anything at this point. So we'll let you go home for Easter, but you got to come back right after that. We're going to do one more biopsy, because they're fighting back and forth. We think it's cancer. We think it's an autoimmune disease. They don't know. They're bickering back and forth about what it is. So went back for the final biopsy in May, and they took some of the small bowel, mesentery, and some of the full of this fluid, lymphatic fluid. So they took some of the fluid out and some of that small bowel mesentery, and I thank God for the pathologist that was working that day, because he looked at it and was like, I really don't know, but I think this is kind of what it looks like. And further testing and investigating, it came out to be this T Cell Lymphoma. So they called me. It's like, hey, this was on like a Thursday or Friday. Monday, you're going in the hospital. We're going to start chemo. We really don't know how to treat it, but we're just going to throw everything we can at it. And by the way, you're going to have to stay in the hospital for a week, and then get chemo for a week and come home. You'll be home for 2 weeks, and you get to come back. And I was like,
so when you received this diagnosis of T Cell lymphoma, you knew you had cancer up to that point.
Right.
Was it any form of relief that you kind of knew where it was going, or was it more stressful?
A little bit of both, Travis. Because now we knew what we had, and we knew what we had to do to try to fight it. And I was able to focus everything on the fighting that, and not just trying to figure out what was going on and how we were going to deal with it. So I knew that we were going to have to do what we had to do with the chemo and whatever direction they wanted to go to beat it, because they told me I had about a 70% chance of not making it.
Wow.
It was 70-30, 30% chance that I could beat it, or 30% chance to beat it and 70% not to. I said, well, I made up my mind that we were going to beat it, whatever we had to do.
So now, at this time, I know you've mentioned this to me before. You had a new kid, pretty much at that same time too. How did that stack up on you?
That sucked. to be honest, my son was 2.5 years old when I was diagnosed, and I lost a lot with him. That whole time of being sick, to where he knew visiting me at the hospital was how he basically got to spend time with me a lot. And we'd drive by the hospital and say, "Oh, look, there's Daddy's hospital." That's how he, what he thought of me. That's what he thought of, was me being in a hospital.
How old was he at the time?
He was 2.5. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for interrupting, but I think that's a critical
element
to put in.
So, like, starting the chemo, so I would go in the hospital on a Monday, stay till Sunday, get chemo for 24 hours a day. They'd let me out on Sunday or the following Monday, be home for 2 weeks, come back in for a week, again, off for 2 weeks. So I was in the hospital every third week for 7 days for 8 months.
And out of work.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
So I was fortunate enough I went on short-term disability, and I had saved my sick and vacation time over the years and not wasted a lot of it. So I was able to make up that, because short-term disability doesn't pay your full pay. So I was able to make up that time with sick and vacation, which was good. And so we're trying to work to get better. My intention is to come back to work. And coming down to the end of the stretch of doing the chemo, and they had planned that we were going to have to do a bone marrow transplant at the end of all this. So they couldn't find a match for bone marrow. So they said, well, we'll just use your own. And that's what they call an autologous transplant. So where they harvest your own white cells from your body, freeze them, and then give them back to you. So when I went in to the hospital for that, I was on of leave of absence at that point from the city. So I was not getting paid. I was having to pay out of pocket for my insurance, back to the city. And when I was going in for the transplant, I was going to be in the hospital for a minimum of 30 days.
So in addition to worrying about your health and stressing about that, worrying about your family, now you had financial issues.
Exactly. Financial issues. My wife, and so was back and forth at Wake Forest, at Baptist Hospital, on and off the whole time. My wife would have to try to come and stay with me some. She would stay in the State Employees Credit Union house, which is a house there, right there on campus. She could stay at free of charge and still come see me. But my son was, still at home, so we were have care for him. She's trying to split time between, home, Wake Forest, taking care of me, because at this point I wanted her there with me, all the time.
Do you have an idea that you can't quite get out of your head and onto paper? Does your department need updated shirts? If so, you need to talk to the guys over at Studio Print Shop. We've been working with the guys at Studio on making some of our ideas become reality. Whether you need screen printing, embroidery, or graphic design, they have you covered. They're even working with the latest direct-to-garment printing technology to make your ideas come true. Check out their link on our website or go to studioprintshop.com and get 10% off your first order when you use the discount code ALLCLEAR. Studio Print Shop, creativity fueled by passion and vision. How about the fire family? How are they doing with it?
So that was a great support group that I had throughout the whole time. When I was going through chemo and all that, we never wanted for a meal, cut my grass, do whatever needed to be done around the house. And there was somebody, always wanting to come by, talk to you, which was fantastic. Even when I was at Baptist, I'd have people, come in from the fire department and visit a good bit, and talking to them now, years later, is like, dude, we came in to see you that day, and we didn't think you were going to be there the next day.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And you still work with a lot of these people.
I sure do.
And I assume I know you're close to them. But.
Oh yeah, very close. Yeah.
All right. Sorry for interrupting that story, but this is all stuff that I've kind of seen happen myself, working in the same department as you. And
sure.
It's pretty awesome. But so you're off the job, financially on the ropes, got your family you're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the news?
So the news now is, so we've got to do this transplant. You're on 30-day leaves of absence. We know you're going to be in the hospital for at least 30 days. So and the day you come home from the hospital, you're not going to get to come right back to work. So I had to get an extension for another 30 days. And at this point, the doctor's like, dude, you're done working. There's no way you can go back to work.
So jar pats wouldn't have been in the cards for you at all.
No, not at all. But the chief said, all right, great. Let's, as long as you can come back, and if you're here for just 4 hours a day, we can, you don't have to, just kind of be here, light duty. We can, count you back as an employee. So that's what we started, gradually doing that. And finally, they said, okay, well, it's time to look at, trying to retire. So I went through that whole process.
And how old were you at the time?
38, 39.
That's kind of young for retirement.
Yeah. And it's a medical disability retirement, which is not very lucrative.
Understandable.
There's not a lot of money in that. And then they tell you that you can only work, and I think I was able to make, $20,000 a year if I worked anywhere.
Wow.
So ended up retiring January 1st, 2013. By this time, I would come. I was on the mend, really well. Still having some issues, having to get blood or platelets every so often. But the communications director came and talked to me. She said, "Hey, I know you just retired. Would you be interested in working part-time for communications?" Because I was a police officer, which is another story.
We won't hold that against you.
That's a whole other story. for 11 years before transferring to the fire department. So she knew I had background in both, and
right.
asked if I would work part-time and help out. And I was like, sure, yeah. I said, I'll work some for you, here and there, what I can. So I worked there. It's about a month after I retired, so I went back to work for the city part-time. And then in 2016, I'd been there for almost 4 years working for communications part-time. My doctor called me and said, hey, Matt, you've been doing great for the last 3 years. I think I could, I know you're retired, man, but if you wanted to go back to work, I think I would release you to go back to work.
Were those words you wanted to hear?
That is exactly what I wanted to hear.
How happy were you?
I was excited. I mean, ecstatic. I was actually working in communications, and I jumped up out of my chair right then and waltzed my hind end right up to the deputy chief's office and said, hey, my doctor just called me and said I can come back to work. What do I do? And he's like, I don't know.
Never had to do that.
I've never had anybody retire and come back to work. And so I don't know, but let me figure out what we got to do. I was like, okay, I'm in. So I got my clearance letter from the doctor. I talked to the state because I figured this is going to be, an ordeal to try to work it through the state.
State's never easy.
Exactly, except for if you want to come back to work off a disability.
I didn't know that.
Then they are like, oh, you want to come back to work? No problem. So like when you're trying to get disability, you have to go through the board of doctors that they have, and they have to agree that yes, you can't work. Well, I had no problem getting through when I went on disability, and I had no problem coming back to work either. So they were like, sure, your doctor says you're good, you're clear. All right, have at it. So, like I said, talking to the deputy chief, they had it figured out, and it was awesome that I was still an employee of the city. So they just opened the position internally, so I could apply internally for the position, and they were getting ready to start a new rookie school in January.
Right.
So I had to keep it under wraps until December-ish, where I could announce that, hey, I'm coming back. So I came back to work January 1st of 2017. So I was retired for a total of 4 years. Come back January 1st of 17, and had to go back through EMT class.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, with the rookie class. So I came in back as a firefighter. Came in, worked out with them, did everything they did.
Did you smoke the rookies?
No. I'm an old guy, man. So I'm over 40 years old now. So, or at that time, and so I did. I came in, worked out, did everything with them. Went through 4 weeks of EMT. Passed my EMT, and that was the only portion of the rookie school that I had to redo. And it was only because I had to get that certification back.
So now that you're back at Concord, you're back, you're in, you're rocking, you're rolling. Where are you at now?
As today, I sit here as the captain of Engine 7 on C shift.
Wow, that's a long way from answering calls in the 911 center on a medical discharge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But so, I've talked to Melanie Jordan who works with us,
right?
And she mentioned that you have your birthday, then you have your new birthday.
That's correct, and I celebrate both of them.
And what is your new birthday? Why don't you explain what that is?
Okay, so when you have a bone marrow transplant, they consider that your new birthday, because your whole immune system is shut down, and when they give you the transplant, that is the beginning of your new life.
Rebooting your system.
Rebooting the system. So they give that to you as your new birthday.
Right.
Technically. I mean, this,
Yeah, on paper.
Yeah, on paper. But yes, and I do celebrate both birthdays, and I expect presents on both birthdays.
We know that posts go out all the time on that.
Yeah. And so my new birthday is February the 8th. That was the date. February 8th of 2012 was my bone marrow day. And when I came back out of rookie school, or EMT, rookie school, whatever you want to call it, my first day back on shift was my 5-year anniversary of my bone marrow transplant, which was February the 12th of 2017.
And there you go, full circle.
That's right.
So since then, what I know we'll talk about peer support in another episode. We're definitely going to have you back for that. But what have you been doing since then in relation to not just your health, but I know that in Concord in particular, we've had several cases of folks that have passed away from cancer, particularly after retirement and things like that. What have you been doing personally to kind of help out with that? And I know you've worked with Eric quite a bit on some projects and stuff like that, but what have you been doing in particular to give back to the fire service and how they helped you?
We becoming part of the Cancer Alliance is one thing. Also being on the board, but being over peer support, and teaching and trying to teach people, how to clean your turnout gear, how to clean yourself, how to get your checkups, how to do, make sure you get this stuff done, not being the old salty dog like we used to see, those years ago, walking out with, soot all over you. You're the bad man to come out. I'm the best there ever was, but it's not wrong to be clean.
Yep. So when you're doing all that, I know that you have been very instrumental in our peer support program, the first iteration of it, and now we have our new stuff that we're doing.
Right.
But how many people would you say that you've talked to or helped, just kind of a thumbnail sketch? How many people have you had a chance to share your story with, help them through their own journeys with this?
There have, right offhand, I couldn't tell you like an exact number, maybe. But in the last 5 years, probably 15 or 20 individuals that I've talked to and helped to do things with or for. But now I've spread my story all over. Like I teach classes all over the state, and the classes, the cancer and the fire service class, and I know it's kind of not the class that everybody wants to go to, but I mean it is a good class to sit in and listen and learn some things.
Yep, sure is.
About cancer prevention. And I know that we're not going to prevent every type of cancer or every exposure, but if we can help that one person out there that keeps their gear that much cleaner than they were before, we're helping prevent them from maybe being diagnosed at some point in their life.
So
do you share that story now with the incoming rookie schools?
I do. I teach every rookie school that comes through now. I teach the cancer and the fire service class too.
That's awesome.
It's kind of I also teach communications and some other things, but I try to do it with I'll do a communications class and then do the second half of the day of the cancer and the fire service class.
And with your diagnosis, and they put you out of work and everything else, was there any way to link your experience with being a job-related issue?
Eric, no, not really. Now, I had some exposures, throughout the years. Some pretty nasty fires. We had a dump fire out here that we were at for
ever
trying to put out, and there was a lot of nasty stuff in it, and a lot of stuff that we didn't know even what was in there.
Or probably so we'll never find out.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I brought that up, that kind of diagnosis, it's kind of hard to pinpoint just one thing or when it actually, started to manifest itself. And I think that can link into a current project that we're all trying to work on with the tracking of exposures.
Yeah. So with that one, unfortunately, that's kind of hard, but now, what we know, if I would track any exposure that I did have, would that have, been part of it? Who knows? But it would at least been documented, that it did happen, and I was there on this day and this day and this day.
Sure.
And what kind of exposure I had.
So it sounds to me, and if I'm wrong, let me know, that, you said you knew what you could do as far as on the fire grounds, you knew what you could do physically, then one day you couldn't do it.
Yes.
So check yourself, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So
and of course, we've come a long way, too, in the fire service, or at least here, in the yearly physicals that we do, and that's another great thing that the Cancer Alliance is doing with the Appalachian,
the Blue Ridge.
the Blue Ridge Project.
You're right on.
And giving scholarships for that, or grants
to help out,
paying for people to get physicals, because we did not do that good of a physical at that point. It was kind of your regular go through. Okay, you're good. You're breathing. You can.
What's your hearing? Can you stretch?
Exactly. But nowadays, those physicals are getting a lot better, and I think we're doing better as a whole.
Right.
Of doing the extra blood work. Not only heart disease that they're worried about, they're also worried about cancer now.
Yep.
So it's become such a prevalent in our profession,
and even the mental health. I mean, that's
sure.
a huge thing.
Yes.
And if your head isn't clear, recovery isn't easy.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, yeah. So I talked with a lot of people, when I was going through the whole process, and it wasn't just, friends and family. I talked to clinicians, because when you get told you got a 30% chance of beating this,
you don't know where you're going.
Right.
Yeah.
So that weighs so heavy on you, and so heavy on your mind, on top of everything else. Financial. What's my son's 2.5 years old. What's going to happen with him? My wife's running back and forth. I'm having to pay for my insurance, out of pocket. That sort of stuff, and it just builds and builds and builds, and you've got to have that outlook, or having those people to talk to, whether it be me, whether it be a licensed clinician or whatever. You've got to get it out.
Yeah,
and that the mindset, looking at everything. You said very early on in your story, as soon as you got that diagnosis, you'd already made it up in your mind. We're going to beat this, no matter what the odds are. We're going to beat it no matter what. Where some people just might, oh geez, this sucks, and kind of roll over, let it run its course. And I think the mindset is very, very important to any type of life struggle that we might encounter. You got to have that power of positivity that, we're going to face it head on. We're going to get through it. We're going to make it to the other side of this. You mentioned your fire family being a huge support for you during all this. What other support did you and your family have outside of the fire department?
I was not aware of any peer support or anything, for cancer survivors or anything like that, because cancer was kind of taboo still in the fire service at that point. So I really had no other outlet other than, I had my church, that was there, and they were very supportive, of me as well, and my own family, which was great that they were there and could help. And it's like my mother-in-law, at the time, she basically moved. She's from West Virginia. She basically moved down and lived in our house to help take care of my son with my parents as well.
And the other thing, Matt, that you've mentioned it, and unless you work for Concord, you're probably not aware of it. You mentioned the deputy chief you went to. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the chief that worked with you. Mm-hmm. They sit with us on the board now, don't they?
They sure do.
So, it's coming full circle, and we're blessed to have you at Concord. It's an honor to have you, and I'm not just saying that, but you and Eric are doing some very cool stuff. And in another episode, we're going to talk about the importance of peer support. So, I just think it's important that everybody hear your story. It's one of many, and we're not just telling a story to tell a story.
Right.
But, like he said, check yourself. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But we appreciate you for your time today.
Oh, man, yeah.
But did you know that we have a, how shall we say, a tradition here on our show that we're quickly developing?
And what is that?
Watch this. Hey, Eric, did you hear about the cheese factory fire over in France the other day?
No, I did not, Travis.
Well, they said debris was everywhere.
Yeah.
Come on
Thank
now.
You. Thank you.
We need some more people to subscribe, because once we get to 1,000, then I'll stop telling the dad.
Oh, okay. Please subscribe.
We got a long way to go.
Yeah, please. But, please subscribe.
But honestly, we appreciate you taking time. Eric, thank you for listening in. I know Matt and I did most of the talking, but I think next time we have Matt on, you'll have a lot more to say and kind of show what we've been working on together.
I'm just happy to be here.
Hey, we're happy to have you here, Matt. It's a privilege to have you here, and hopefully you'll be back many more times.
Well, thank you very much. I'll be glad to.
Hey, no worries. So you have been listening to All Clear. You have been listening to All Clear, presented by the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Alliance and the First Responder Peer Support Network. Please rate us on your podcasting app of choice. This show is written and produced by Travis McGaha and Eric Stevenson and recorded on Riverside FM. See you soon.